Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Big Ball Vlogs. And as promised, I told you I would get back to you once I've completed my Genu Smooth Q compact camera conversion. Damn, it's a lot to say in one breath. Before I get started, let me give credit to Matt T. Matt T left a comment on how I could tinker with the balance on this by getting some balancing weights from Harbor Freight. That worked, and thank you for everyone else who gave me ideas on how to kind of make this work. I tinkered with a couple of them. I can't remember. Someone else said flip the bracket. I tried that one, but it kind of left it off balance, and I couldn't get it to really mount. I tried putting the bracket on top, putting the camera on top. I put the screen up. A lot of different things I tried to kind of balance out the weight that weren't actually working for me. Another thing I did was I had some 3D brackets printed, which I messed up on the mounting hole. I probably will revisit these just to give a nicer look to it. I put the mounting hole a little bit lower so it threw off the balance, so put the center of gravity a little bit lower, lowering the pivot point on that one. So I'll probably have to either drill another hole or try a different print. But let's get into the camera. I mean, not the camera, let's get into the gimbal. I know a lot of you guys said, hey, the Smooth Q won't be able to handle the weight. I didn't just think of this on my own. I'm going to be honest with you. I already saw guys online doing this. And the guys who did it, they were doing it with like RX 100s, but they weren't giving any instruction. They were just like, hey, look what I did. Maybe a 30-second video, maybe up to a minute, showing you that they converted their Smooth Q. And you kind of had to like look at what you were seeing and kind of try to reverse engineer it. And that's what I did. I saw somebody's idea. I reverse engineered it. I'm like, yeah, so it looks like he put a weight on the back here. He took the clamp off, so on and so forth. And I pulled this thing apart and figured out how to do it myself. That was my challenge. My challenge was actually getting it to work using someone else's idea. As I said in the first video, this is not a permanent modification. If you want to put it back together, once you've taken the cell phone clamp off and you remove the little stop screw that's in the back of this thumb screw here, all you have to do when you want to put your cell phone back on is remove your L bracket, put this back together. Actually, you put it all back together first. You're going to take off this little rubber pad, remove 2 screws, pull this apart, remove the stop screw in the back of the thumb screw, and then put it back together in the reverse way. But you're going to have to glue this little rubber pad back on. And now this thing is ready to swap out whenever you want to go back from your compact camera to your cell phone. Just put it back together, put it back together, and tighten in the thumb screw. So I kind of went overboard on this one. Kind of went a little bit overboard, and I purchased I'll leave a link to it below, but I purchased one of those mechanical stabilizers or gimbals, not the 3-axis motorized kind, but the kind that have like this handle thing here. There's a bunch of parts because I took it all apart, but you hold it with you know, this handle, and then it had a bunch of these balancing weights on the bottom, ballast weights on the bottom. I tried that first. I wanted to see how accurate this thing was in stabilizing your camera, and I actually used it for like I don't know, all of 20 minutes trying to balance it out, trying to get it to work smooth. This ball wasn't the smoothest, so it would stick and then the camera would shift around. And the LX10's got a, I don't know if it's as good as the one on my FC300 here, but the LX10 has image stabilization as well as image leveling. So if your camera's not totally level, it will do its best to level out the image to an extent. So I tried this device, and I'm like, yeah, it's not the greatest, but it costs 20 bucks. And I wanted to see whether or not I could get a cheaper version or a working, cost-effective, less expensive gimbal than actually going through buying a $700. I think they started like $300 to $700 for the gimbals for a compact camera or a smaller, what do they call it, mirrorless camera. And I was like, hey, you know, I saw that thing from the guys on, since this didn't work, I said, I've seen the videos of guys doing this online. I got one of these things. I'm not using that much. Hey, why not play with it? Why not experiment? So with all of that out of the way, yeah, I took that $20 kit, and since it didn't work, I thought I would use the parts to build this. You don't really need this $20 kit. What I found out was the kit came with aluminum brackets like this. I mean, it was made out of aluminum parts, which is pretty thick aluminum. And what I was going to do was, for the part that actually holds your camera, it had some adjustment notches cut into it. And I ended up breaking it, trying to bend that so that I could make an L bracket for it, so that I would still have those adjustment notches. So after I broke it, I thought, hey, I'll just use all the other hardware and parts to kind of fit or finish off my I built here, like the balancing weights and the bolt that the balancing weights attached to. There were a bunch of little other anodized parts that I said, hey, I could probably use those and make it a little bit more cleaner, like this little anodized set screw. There was another anodized wing nut, which I've misplaced right now, that I had on the back originally. But when I added the extra weight, the wing nut couldn't tighten down because it was a flat wing nut, so the weights were preventing it from tightening down. So I use a majority of the parts from that kit. I mean, the parts from that kit, but you don't need them. You don't need them at all. You can build this with things that you could probably find around Home Depot. In previous videos that I've seen, guys were using large nuts. A large nut for balancing weight. So they would put a big nut on the back of this. They were using standard quarter 20s with standard bolts and nuts and putting it all together. And the L bracket, it was just a piece of like 1/8 inch thick aluminum that I found around work. I got it cut. It was about 3 inches long. I bent it right in half at the 1.5 inch mark and put a little bit of rubber padding on it just to keep it from scratching up my camera. And one thing that I do recommend you do is try to find something that has less of a bolt head on it. I use a quarter 20 socket head screw, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see there, I don't know if it's going to focus on it. That socket head screw is right up against my my lens, and there is the potential that it could actually scratch your lens, but I have a screen protector on it because it's a touch screen, so it's not going to scratch it, but it's sitting very, very close to that lens, if not actually even touching it. So if you could find something that's when you do your build, if you can find something that's either a lower or shallower socket head, or something that's maybe tapered, that you can actually have sit lower by putting a taper into the drill a hole with a taper in it and get it to sit flush. That'll probably be better to keep it away from your screen, and then you might actually even be able to get the camera further back and actually help out with trying to balance the camera out. Right now this camera's sitting a little bit further than I would like it to. I wanted the camera to sit far enough back so that the camera itself was close to the back of this, so that the axis of balance that I'm trying to balance it on, it would be sitting this horizontal axis, this center point here, the center balancing point, was further back, allowing me to balance this a little bit more easier. Is that a word? Easier? But since I had that bolt sticking out, I went with what I got here, and I got it to work. So if I can get that camera a little bit further back, what I'm trying to say is if I can get that camera a little bit further back, I might be able to reduce the weight on the back to keep it balanced. So with all of that said, like I said, it's a very easy modification. You need a little bit of counterbalance weight here. You need a piece of aluminum L bracket, and let's see, a quarter 20 camera mount, which is a coarse thread, I believe. A lot of the parts that came with this little kit that I got from Amazon, I repurposed them. Like, I'll be able to use this handle for other things. Like, I can use it like for a GoPro handle, or a vlogging camera handle, or it has a little threaded end on this one. I could put it on a tripod and do other things with it. So not that you'll not be able to use what you did, but you don't have to go out and buy that kit. So here's what we were trying to do. When I had this turned on before, I turned on the camera, and the lens would cause the extension of the lens would cause the camera to flip straight down, or lens down. So just to show you that this is actually working now with the appropriate balance, I'm going to pop that lens out, and there you go. It balanced it out. Now is it perfectly balanced? It's going to move, and it's going to, because of the, I guess the friction on the motor, just probably going to stop. But yeah, it's perfectly balanced. It kind of holds itself right there, so it is good to go. Balancing it on the horizontal plane, that was pretty simple. What I did was I kind of made sure that I got that camera as close to this arm as possible, like I would do with the cell phone, giving me enough leverage, enough space to adjust that arm out to kind of give it a balance. If it were a little bit further to the right, it probably would require me to slide this arm in or out to a point where it wouldn't balance it out. But it seems like the space that I have, I didn't really have to do much balancing on the horizontal plane to get it balanced. And it's leveled out. So yeah, we got it balanced horizontally, we got it balanced vertically, and this arm here seems to work fine. I don't hear any grinding or crunching from any bearings or races that may they may be getting extra force from the extra weight on it. Let's power it up and see if it actually works. I already know if it works, but I want to show you that it actually does work. So I'm going to power this thing up. And boom, it's up, it's running, it's pointing at me right now. Actually, what you got to do now is, because the camera is facing you in the direction that it would if you were using your cell phone, you have to put it in what I call selfie mode. But what it actually is reverse mode. So when I say selfie mode, it's because if I were using my cell phone, it would turn the cell phone camera around and face me. But what you're actually doing is you're just reversing this gimbal. And when I reverse the gimbal, the controls still work in the same directions and orientation they would work if the camera was facing me. So I'm going to hit the mode button 3 times. And boom, there you go. Your camera's now facing away from you, and all of your controls still work, like I said, if they were in the original cell phone mode. So, does it work? Yes, it works. I'm actually using my good microphone now, so if I keep it quiet enough, you might actually hear my daughter talking in the background, but you might also hear that there is no noise coming from any of these motors from being overloaded or stressed out. I have been using this off and on for the last couple of days because I just wanted to make sure it worked before I count online and shot the video and showed you that it worked. And I have had no issues at all with it. Even to prove it probably will happen in a couple minutes when my camera goes into sleep mode when I'm not recording, the lens retracts, and this motor here is able to keep the camera still level without it shaking or vibrating or overloading. I'm also not feeling any heat generated from any of these motors. Just to prove how easily you can overheat that motor, if I have my cell phone in front of me, which is probably across the room, I had the case on, which has a little bit more weight, and I forgot to push it all the way up against this arm here, and it was just off by just a little bit. So after using it for like 5 minutes, all of a sudden the camera, my cell phone just dropped. It just on the horizontal plane, it just dropped, and I'm like, what happened? And I figured out what happened, but when I went to kind of fix it and I pushed it together like this motor was hot. It got hot, and then it shut down because of it was overheating. I have gotten no heat generated from these motors using this, and I think that's because the camera is properly balanced. When the camera is properly balanced, it takes less force or less energy to move that motor or to try to keep it balanced. The one motor that I was worried about was this bottom motor here. I like the fact that now that I have it in this camera orientation, the camera hangs below the gimbal arm. But I feel like when it's hanging like this, I'm also able to get more, I guess, more of a rotation on the camera. So I can rotate this all the way forward like that. I'm going to hit my lens if I go too far, and I don't want to do that. So I can go rotate this all the way forward like that and then get those nice low shots like that. Or I can bring it back and I can rotate this all the way back like this. And if I for some reason wanted to film myself, I don't know, I'm holding the camera out in front of me like a selfie stick, I could do it that way. Everything seems to work fine. I don't have, like I said, I don't have any grinding or squealing from the motors. Now what I do recommend is that you probably would want to turn your motors down so that you don't get like, you can get this, if you adjust the settings on this gimbal to faster, for a faster action, this thing could whip this camera around pretty fast. But because of the extra weight, you're probably going to exert a lot more stress on those motors, because now it's trying to swing all of this weight around instead of just swinging around your cell phone. So what I plan on doing is just using this for smooth cinematics. And while it's in kind of like normal mode right now, and it's got a decent rotation to it, I want it to move smooth and I want it to move easy. So it's gonna ramp up and slower than just like whip that camera around and probably stress out. Here it is, about to shut down. You can see it right now. My camera's going into sleep mode. Lens retracts and it's still keeping it balanced without shaking. So that shows that that motor is stronger than we actually thought it was. So I'm going to hit that real quick. I'm going to power that back up before I overload that motor. And boom. No issues at all. It didn't drop, even with 200 plus grams on the back. It did not drop that lens or point it straight up in the air like it did before I started it up. So the motors are pretty strong on these things. And I'm just assuming that the motors that they use in this are probably the same motors that they use in the compact camera version. But, you know, we assume that they're using lesser strength motors because they're only using it for a cell phone. So, yeah, it works. It works pretty good right now. Actually, it's in follow mode, so left, right, right? Go down like this. If I swing it this way, I'm going to try to keep it in frame. If I swing it this way, the camera swings nice and easy that way, giving me nice smooth pans. All right. Okay, so now if I want to go into, let's say, lock mode, I'm going to hit the mode button once. And now I'm in lock mode, so the wrist does not affect the rotation of the camera. So the camera is still facing in the direction. If I do this with my arm, turn this all the way around like this, camera never moves out of the orientation it's in. If I go up and down, it never moves out of the orientation that it was in. And I can, like I said, I can even all the way go. It's going to bang up right now, but I could, if this were behind me, I can go pretty low with this and not hit the actual camera. And then finally you have full follow mode. So full follow mode, I'm going to hit twice, 1, 2. So full follow mode means that if I pull the camera back, it's going to point up in the air. If I point it down, it's going to point down to the ground. I go left, I go right. So all the modes work. And if I'm in like lock mode, so I'm going to go back out again. I'm going to go into follow mode. Then I'm going to go into lock mode. If I go into lock mode, you still control the camera with the gimbal like you would if it were with a cell phone. So left will take it right will take it right, left will take it left, up, or actually that's down. That's the only one I always reverse. Pushing forward on the gimbal actually pushes the camera down, and pulling back on it pulls it up. So up is down and down is up. So it is actually too cold outside to go out and play with this right now, and it's too cold for me. I mean, I personally have been out in the last couple of days, and I'm not acclimated for this cold weather yet. So eventually you'll see me shooting more videos with this than you will than you have with my cell phone, because this, my compact LX10, has an amazing sensor on. It's got a 1-inch sensor, and it takes amazing video footage. And with the addition of this, now when I'm filming with it, even though this has image stabilization, now that video should be nice and smooth, like drone-like footage. So stay tuned for more videos coming from this. But yeah, guys, I just want to show you that I got up and working. If you want to try it, maybe you guys that have DJI Osmo don't want to pull apart your Osmo, go out and buy yourself, you can get these for $100, Smooth Q, do the modification, and I will definitely keep you up to date. I'll definitely keep you up to date if this thing happens to burn out in like the next couple weeks of me using it. I don't see myself using it that often. I'll be using it maybe once a month, and if I use it like once a month, it'll be for no more than, what, 20 minutes that it takes me to shoot a video. Right now I'm up to like 18. It's a long-winded video, but I wouldn't be using it for any longer than that. And as you can see, it's been on, hasn't been moving, but it's been on for that 18 minutes, and I have had no issues at all. But once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting the vlog. I totally appreciate it. If you guys try this and you get it working better than I did, or have any cool ideas, please link me to your videos, and I'll be very anxious to see them. And I will talk to you later. Bye.